You'll remember as we went into the last general election, Boris Johnson saying that it really was time that we drew a line under the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And as a result of that, a piece of legislation did, in the end, go through Parliament. Not until Veterans Minister Johnny Mercer had resigned, but we do now have a Legacy Act, which comes into law fully later this year. The trouble is, any investigations or cases that were pending are not stopped by it. And so we've learnt overnight that from an incident or incidents in 1972, a former British Army soldier is going to be facing a murder trial, and 3 other British Army soldiers will be facing attempted murder. Now, this worries me very greatly. Indeed, the Legacy Act itself has been challenged in the European Court of Human Rights by the Irish government, but there's a set of huge double standards here. You see, part of the Good Friday Agreement, and it was something that I struggled with at the time, was the release back into the community of over 400 convicted murderers. That's right, 400 convicted murderers had their prison sentence ended, were sent back into the community. They came, of course, from both sides of the divide, and that was part of the amnesty, part of a deal that led to what has been a much better period of peace in Northern Ireland. And yet, we're still going back and going after soldiers from 1972. And I wonder, Simon Weston, CBE, of course, well-known British Army veteran from the Falklands War. I wonder, Simon, and welcome again to the programme, thank you. I wonder, we're hearing about terrible recruitment problems. I wonder whether cases like this send a message that if you've served in the British Army, you're not really going to get looked after very well.
Well, that's the truth, Nigel. This is doing nothing for recruitment. And if somebody was to ask me today, would I advise a young person to join? Looking at the way that they're going after service personnel now, it's a double standard, as you've already alluded to, that they released all these prisoners, gave them amnesty, but the amnesty doesn't exist for anybody else. But would you join if you could be historically dragged into court 40, 50, 60 years later, when you're reaching your late 70s, early 80s, maybe even your late 80s, and then thrown in jail for the last years of your life? I don't know, there's a terrible double standard going on, but then again, what do we expect? Nobody's showing any great leadership on any of this. I thought Boris Johnson had done what he said he would do, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, certainly not for now anyway. And in the foreseeable future, will people still be able to go after it through the European courts when we are no longer a part of Europe? So I just don't know where it goes, but it certainly doesn't fill me with any eager sense that I should encourage other young people to join. I know from my own personal experience that people are leaving in great numbers because they feel that things aren't working for them in the British military. So I don't know where it goes from here, Nigel.
Well, when Simon Weston says that really you should think twice before joining the British Army, we really do have a very major problem. And I worry, actually, Simon, about defence as a whole. I mean, here we are with the Middle East blowing up, with an ongoing sort of World War I style slaughterhouse happening in Ukraine. We've got constant bellicose threats from China when it comes, of course, to the islands, and Taiwan threatened directly. I wonder, Simon, do we need a complete change of thinking in terms of how we deal with the military and how we deal with the 3 services?
I think, first of all, we have to get rid of this banal thought process that there's ever a peace dividend to be achieved after we've been in conflict and we come out and then they decide to slash the services. If we're to be believed to be any type of support for any peace in the world, we have to have a strong armed forces. Whether people like that or not is not really relevant. If you want to live a safe and secure life, we need to be able to secure our own borders and support other nations when they go forward to protect others who can't protect themselves. And at the moment, we really can't. Even my regiment, I know, is massively under strength. And they've had terrible incidents in the Falklands just in the last few weeks when they had a truck go off the road and 19 guys end up in hospital. So they've had some real problems. But the whole of the armed forces, my goodness, they aren't big enough to be a dad's army, let alone to be an army of support for the European Union or anybody else, for NATO or anything at the moment. And we need to readdress all of that. We need to be seen to be able to support. And the many Americans have come forward and said that what we're doing is not good enough. Many people in NATO have said the same.
Yes, I mean, as you know, I go to America regularly, talk to a lot of senior, mostly former, but some serving military commanders in America. And they all say, for 100 years, we've been great allies, we've worked together, we've always had a huge respect for the British forces, but we're now beginning to ask, are they big enough to be a serious player?
Well, that seems to be the case, certainly, and they want to diminish it more. And then they've always said, we'll rely on the reservists. Now, the reservists are very good, very professional. They've had plenty of time to get it right. They still are only around about 12 or 14,000 when they were talking about, when they were slashing the forces, the options for change, that they were going to create 20, 30, 40,000 reservists. But why would anybody join the military when they said you can get paid like a regular service person when you're already earning £50,000? Why would you want to earn 11,000? Because an ordinary service person is only earning about £24,000 a year. So, why would you take a pay cut to go and risk your life? And the money is a big thing. Lots of service people are struggling just with the cost of living, the same as everybody else. But a dustbin man is earning far more than a professional soldier. That can't be right. That cannot be right. I'm not knocking dustbin men. They do a great job because, we all need them. But at the end of the day, we need service people and we need them to be paid properly so that they can take their children on holiday, buy their children things and support themselves and buy a property as well when they leave the armed forces, be able to contribute into a larger pension pot. Because a lot of service people don't really live a great life when they leave. Some do, some don't. And we have to protect all of them and make it possible for them all to live properly. And I don't think that's the case right now.
Simon Weston said with very great passion and conviction. And in this general election year, let's hope that we can have a lot more debate about what we're doing with our armed forces. Simon, as ever, absolute pleasure.